How's it going, YouTube? This is FourthStarTCG, and today we're returning to my Let's Talk Pokemon series to go over something that I think has been an important trend in the Pokemon card hobby, and that I think a lot of people, if you are a serious collector, and when I say serious, I mean spending several $100s on Pokemon cards, that you will have noticed. And that trend is the increasing value of cards that are present in the Wizards of the Coast, or WOTC era, namely first edition base set, shadowless base set, other variants of base set, and even unlimited base, not so much unlimited base set, there's a lot of that out there, but other first edition Wizard of the Coast series cards, in especially PSA graded versions of those cards, values are increasing across the board. And today I'm going to explain to you why that's happening, and my investment forecast for this. Of course, I don't collect first edition base set cards, but I know a lot of people who do, and I'm extensively involved in the Pokemon card hobby, so I hope what I say is something that you guys can take to heart and understand, and maybe take as something close to truth. So the first thing that is incredibly important to realize about first edition base set and why Wizards of the Coast era cards are rising in value is the demographics of collectors. Most Pokemon card collectors are between the age of 20 and 30. These are people who grew up with Pokemon, who were introduced to it at a young age, and then, I mean, this is sort of the general story of the serious collector. Someone who collected Pokemon cards as a kid, they then either lost their cards, they put them away, they sold them, and then later in life they come back to the hobby, they recognize it again, they understand that it provides them with a lot of excitement and fun, and they get back into the hobby. They realize that cards that they idolized as a kid, they can now buy for $10 to $15 off of eBay. This is something that's very accessible to them now, but wasn't accessible when they were a kid, because eBay wasn't around. Buying cards was something that you couldn't do when you were 8 to 10 years old, and you were playing with these cards. You couldn't come up with a serious collection. But now people are let's say, when was Pokemon around? 1995. I think 1995 to 2000. Maybe the base set came out in 1999, I think. Yeah. So someone who was maybe 5 to 10 years old around then, now they're 25 to 30. They have I'm talking extremely generally here. I don't mean this to be offensive to anyone if you don't fit this description. But generally, these people, they have gone off to college, they've gotten their degree, they now have a steady job, and they have disposable income. Maybe they're living in an apartment, and they've got that amount of money, they've got money that they can now spend on something that they want. And they've got a good amount of money that they can spend on something that they want, and they're spending that on Pokemon cards, and that's why these cards are increasing in value, because the demographics are favorable to it. People have grown up with Pokemon. Like I said, they've now got their job. They've now got disposable income that they are putting into the Pokemon card hobby, and that's causing these values to increase. That, and people are now starting to realize that Pokemon is not a sort of one-hit wonder. Pokemon keeps succeeding. We've seen that success with Sun and Moon. We've seen that success with Pokemon Go. Pokemon is not fading. The player base is growing at a faster rate than ever before. The VGC player base is growing extremely quickly, and Pokemon in general is exploding right now. People are realizing that this is a solid thing to collect. This is something that sort of like vintage baseball cards, or hockey cards, or sports memorabilia, or even autographs or something like that. They're recognizing Pokemon cards as a legitimate hobby. The closest comparison might be something like Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Magic the Gathering, but Pokemon is very different from those, and I think Scott S.M. Pratt did a video on that. You can check out his channel if you want. Link will be in the description, most likely. Yeah. So besides demographic shift, I'd also like to, and that's why these cards are being more valuable now. Both demographic shift and just their aging, they're becoming harder to find. People are now willing to spend more on these cards as they recognize that they are disappearing as quickly as they pop up on eBay. People are willing to spend a exorbitant sum of money to get that first edition Charizard in PSA 9 or 10. Even the lower grades have very striated price points. It's very clear. If you got a PSA 6 first edition Charizard, this is what it's selling for. I don't know the exact price of it. Probably somewhere in the neighborhood of $500. So now that we've talked about that, I want to talk about, is this a bubble? This is always something that a lot of people are interested in. Is this going to change? Is this level of, are these prices going to stay the way they are, or are they going to increase more, or are they going to decrease? I can really only see first edition base set and other Wizards of the Coast era sets increasing in price. The reason being is that while the people who were collecting these cards as kids are going to continue to grow up, they're going to continue to have disposable income, and they're going to continue to be able to spend it on that first edition base set Wizards of the Coast era cards. Now, as time goes on, another important thing is that younger generations are going to come into their are going to be graduating from college, getting their first job, obtaining that disposable income that they can now spend on Pokemon cards if they want to. If they're collectors, they get back into it from their youth. And this is going to cause a marked, at least in my opinion, this is going to cause a marked increase in other eras of Pokemon card sets. In a couple years, I think we'll see or maybe 5 years or so, we'll see a marked increase in Generation 2 cards, the Crystals, E-Series Hollows, stuff like that. I think those are going to take off pretty quickly. Maybe in, I think, what did I say, 5 years, let's go 3 years. In another 3 years, I'd say we're going to see a very marked increase in EX series cards. Gold stars are already one of the most collectible things in the Pokemon TCG, but I believe that the EX era EX cards, I've got a couple right here, my PSA 10 Japanese EXs, these are what I collect, because these are what I grew up with. I don't collect first edition base set and stuff like that because I really don't have any memories of that from my childhood. These EX cards are what I collected, and this is what I'm going for, and these are what people of my generation, once we grow up and we get our jobs and our disposable income, this is what we're going to be spending our money on. We're not going to be going back. We're not going to be looking at stuff that we didn't have as kids. We're going to be wanting what was available when we were children. We want that feeling of nostalgia that is provided by the older EX series Pokemon cards. Personally, I think Gold Stars, except for the Entei, Suicune, and Raikou, don't touch those. Don't ever go near those. Just don't. That's another video. But don't go near the English Gold Star dogs. Japanese, fine. You can buy those if you want, but don't touch the English ones. Gold Stars are probably going to see an incredible increase maybe in the next, I'd say maybe 6 to 8 years. We're going to see a very large increase in Gold Star cards. We're going to see a very large increase in EX series cards, especially PSA graded versions of those, as we've seen. PSA for first edition base set has increased. So I think it's going to continue, and we're just going to keep seeing this. We're just going to keep seeing this continue to grow. I personally wouldn't see a large increase for the EX series. I wouldn't forecast as large of an increase as first edition base set. The only reason being, of course, it's not those original cards. It's not that original stuff that people are always taught. Everyone knows about the iconic first edition Charizard. It doesn't have that same sort of iconography associated with it. However, we're still going to see a marked increase. Stuff like this. What did I say in my previous video? $40. I'd say this has a value of about $40. 6 to 8 years, that value is probably going to double, if not triple, based on the bump of EX series. I'd say $80, $100 in 6 to 8 years would not be out of the excuse me, would not be out of the realm of possibility for these old Japanese EX cards and the English ones as well. English has a lot of quality issues. PSA 10s are going to be going for a high premium. They already are right now. So just keep that in mind when you're looking for cards. And yeah, I'm not sure. I think it's difficult to forecast this into the future. Like kids who are growing up with the XY era now, maybe in 20 years from now, there's going to be a massive increase in the XY era. I'm not sure. I do think that stuff like Generation 2 is going to start. So we've already started seeing an increase in crystal prices. Generation 3 is something that I definitely see an increase coming sooner rather than later. I think if you like the EX series, you like the gold stars, you should get them now. Spend that money. It's a lot, but it's going to be even more if you wait longer. So that's sort of my investment forecast. That's why first edition base set cards are doing so well, and how I see the sort of price skyrocketing of first edition base set cards, why it's happening. If it will happen to other sets, the answer to that, of course, is yes. And how far I see that going for Gen 2, probably not going to be as much as Generation 1, but I think there's still going to be a marked increase. Generation 3, I think, is probably going to be more than Generation 2 because they had the first sort of real defined ultra rare cards in the EXs. They're very iconic. Pokemon has stuck with EX for 3 out of their 7 generations, and Pokemon GX are really just Pokemon EX, but with a different letter. So there you go. That's my investment forecast. If you guys have any questions, feel free to drop them in the comment section below, and I will try my best to answer them. If you have any suggestions for Let's Talk Pokemon videos, leave them in the comment section as well. So thank you guys very much for watching. Be sure to like and subscribe, and stick around for more videos.